We're going to discuss section 1.4, and this has to do with properties. Properties in math are kind of like laws, if you will. A lot of the times they're laws that we use all the time, but we don't even think about, we use naturally. Just like if you're driving and you saw that particular sign, you don't go through the whole process of going, oh, that means I need to put my foot on the brake. I think it means I'm supposed to stop. You would automatically just stop the car when you saw that sign. Properties in math, like I said, are a lot like this, that you use them without even thinking about what they're called or why you can use them. The first property that we're going to talk about is called commutative property. And commutative is the same base word as what you would say commute. If you commute to work and home from work, you're going from one position to another and then back to the original position. So commutative property just switches the order of the numbers. So 3 plus 5 is the same as 5 plus 3. You know, on the left-hand side, that would be equal to 8, and the right-hand side would be equal to 8. Now, this is the commutative property of addition. You also have a commutative property of multiplication. 3 times 5 equals 5 times 3. You can switch the order. So I have 15 is equal to 15, and I know that that is correct. Now notice I do not have a commutative property of division or subtraction because the order is important on those two. So on addition or multiplication, you can switch the orders of the number and not have it affect the problem. The next property is called the associative property. And if you look at the word associative, you think about who you associate with or hang out with, and it all has to do with parentheses here. On these, the order hasn't changed, unlike the commutative property, but what has changed is who you group together. So I could say 1 plus 2 plus 3 equals 1 plus 2 plus 3. If the first two go together here and the second two go together here, I have 3 plus 3. And here I would have 1 plus 5. You know that this is equal to 6 and this is equal to 6. So it doesn't matter who I add to who first on the associative property of addition. I have the associative property of multiplication doing the exact same thing. Let's say I don't change the order, and I put my parentheses here, and then I put my parentheses there. So I have 6 times 4 is equal to 2 times 12. 6 times 4 is 24. 2 times 12 is also equal to 24. So you can see it doesn't matter which ones you multiply together first. Again, you do not have an associative property of subtraction or division. Next property is called the additive identity property, and it basically says in order for a number to keep its identity when you're adding, you can add 0 to it. So any number plus 0 is going to give you the original number. Now that's a property that you use all the time, you know it, but you don't sit there and think of, oh, it's called the additive identity property. You just know that when you add 0 to a number, it doesn't change the number. You also have a multiplicative identity property, and that says any number, let's say I pick 125, if I multiply it by 1, it does not change the identity of that original number. Again, something you know, you just don't know the name of the property. Multiplicative property of 0 says any number I multiply by 0, I'm going to get 0. Okay, those are properties you use all the time. You just don't know the name of the property. So we want to practice looking at a problem and saying which property we've used to solve the problem. If you look at this very first number, notice how the order has changed. 3 plus 7 plus 9, 7 plus 3 plus 9. If the order has changed, I know I'm using commutative property. Now, this is the commutative property of addition because that's what's going on in the problem. This one, you see parentheses, so the very first thing you want to look at is it associative property? The order has not changed from one side to the other, but what I multiply together, or what's in the parentheses, has changed. So this is the associative property of multiplication. This one, I take a number, I multiply by 0, and I get 0. So this is the 0 property of multiplication. Now, you try some, pause the video, and then come back and see if you got the problem correct. On this one, the order has changed, so it's commutative property, and you'll notice it's multiplication, so it's the commutative property of multiplication. This one, the parentheses has changed. It's the associative property of addition. And on this one, you take the 17, you multiply it by 1, you don't change its identity, so it's the identity property of multiplication. The next thing we're going to look at in this section is how to simplify algebraic expressions. This uses the properties that you just saw. So on this particular one, I don't know what k is, so I can't add k plus 2, but I can think of this as k plus 2 plus 7. I'm allowed to change who that 2 associates with, so I have k plus 9. So that's the simplified algebraic expression. This one, I'm going to change the order, so I have d times 5 plus 9. I'm kind of using commutative and associative here, which is going to give me a d times 45, but we always write the number in front of the variable, so we're going to call it 45d. There's an understood multiplication between that, but we don't have to put that dot. Now you try some. Again, pause the video and come back. I'm going to multiply the 5 and the 3 together, and that's going to give me a 15r here. I'm going to change the order here and do x plus 12 plus 18 and put the parentheses around the 12 and 18. So it's going to give me an x plus 30. Your homework on this section is page 26 through 27, 14 through 32 even, and 40 through 46 even.